What's up, guys? Mike Lewis here, and welcome to the Mike Lewis podcast. If you guys want to keep up with me on social media, you can follow me on Instagram at Mike Lewis Official, and you can follow me on Twitter at MikeLew52. It's where most of my updates come. If you're enjoying my content, give me a like and a subscribe. And without further ado, let's just dive right into this episode. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode, and please help me welcome my guest today. You guys have been asking for him, Mr. Steve Meinke. How are we doing?
Not too bad. Nobody's asked for me, I'm pretty sure. But just to correct, my last name is Meinke, M-E-I-N-K-E. No one. I don't really correct anybody ever. I stopped probably in second grade, but it's like I spilled my ink all over the desk. Meinke. Hence, my Twitter handle is Meinke Drop.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay.
Yes. Which would also be my finishing wrestling move as well. So,
a wrestling fan you are?
I'm an immense wrestling fan, yes.
So what's your thoughts on the current state of WWE? You still tune in?
I have not watched WWE since SummerSlam of last year. I love the Rumble, but I don't know any of the storylines right now just because I've been too busy because there's just way too much. I was a NXT person more so than WWE, and then they had the reboot. So to be honest, like I said, ever since Adam Cole and some of those guys left, I've just been out of the loop. I'll tune into AEW, but I'm probably about 2 months behind on them as well. So I really don't watch much TV right now, except for Chiefs and for KU Jayhawks right now. So if I start watching WWE and AEW right now, that's an extra 10 hours a week that I just can't have right now. So.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I'm kind of in the same boat as you are. And when we're talking about the Royal Rumble too, since you mentioned it, for fans that don't know, essentially the Royal Rumble is almost like, and you can make an argument that WrestleMania is kind of like the Super Bowl, in terms of wrestling. But in my eyes, I've always used this analogy. I call the Royal Rumble the Super Bowl because sure, WrestleMania is like bigger, but if you don't know the story, you kind of have to know the storylines going into WrestleMania, right? Whereas I feel like you could just flip on the Rumble and you're watching it. You see 30 guys, 90 seconds apart, just running out in a big spree of madness going on. I feel like that's much more easy to get in tuned with than WrestleMania if you don't know what's going on with the plot line. So that's why I always call Royal Rumble the Super Bowl of WWE.
I'm not going to disagree with you. I'll say it's the most fun fan interaction. It's actually on my bucket list of sports. If you consider it sports or sports entertainment, but I don't consider Survivor Series one of the big four anymore. I would probably put Money in the Bank ahead of that. I think those storylines are much better. But it's weird because I've yet to go to a Royal Rumble, but I've been to Mania, and I was actually at the last Mania for Dallas, which was absolutely amazing, and I might be going to that one as well. But yeah, I'm a huge Rumble fan. SummerSlam's okay. I like the old school build up of they don't have the long term stories of Survivor Series going into Rumble and then the Rumble super build up, and 99% of people don't care about what we're saying right now. So I apologize to every single one of you. So.
Yeah, we might have like 0.1% of people that are interested. No, just kidding. There's actually like a decent amount of people that comment some WWE related stuff here and there when using analogies. So for those people, they're probably loving this. But there's going to
be a lot of sports analogies and a decent amount of wrestling analogies. So I apologize, and I talk like an old cantankerous man as well. So I apologize for that. So here we go.
All right, so we joked a little bit before about nobody wanting to see you, but when talking about 2021 and the year that it was, would you have ever thought in a million years that you would have been back on television in MTV's realm, or is that just almost seems surreal that that happened?
It wasn't even on my radar, to be honest. I never thought I was going to be on a challenge ever again. I actually still work in television somewhat, and I still work in production, doing commercials and prints and things like that. And I do work on a decent amount of industrials. So I'm used to the production world. But for me, being in front of the camera and me actually talking and doing those types of things, I was not expecting it. There was a certain point in time about 5 or 6 years ago that I was actually doing a lot of hosting and things like that for events and doing some of their web broadcasts, and actually for a lot of the stuff that I do with Ryder Cup. Again, you'd see parts of me, and I do a lot of presenting and hosting for industrials and corporations and things like that. But as for national broadcasts, not particularly, especially for reality TV.
Was it like a conflict of not being able to dive back into that for a while? Because, I mean, you went and did the Gauntlet, and obviously that was 18 years ago. So when you resurfaced, I'm sure it must have been a surprise for a lot of people to see you back, and you probably were surprised yourself to be back. Like, were you not able to come back because of some of the other work you had been doing, or was that a conscious decision on your end?
That's this could be a 16-hour, 4-part, answer. But my time on the Gauntlet actually was probably one of the lowest points of my adult life. I'd probably say that was most frustrating. And I didn't like the Gauntlet at all. It left a really bad taste in my mouth. I think one of the issues with me in general was when I got on the show. I mean, you'll probably ask me a couple questions already with that. Is I wasn't a full-fledged adult by any means, but I was almost 24. I had graduated college 2 years beforehand, and I think I might have been more of an old school type of a person, where I actually I dropped out of grad school, and I think, during, season 8, 9, 10, you saw less and less people, with that were more or less adults. The first couple of years of Real World and Road Rules, you had people that were college graduates that were trying to go do something. I think you had people in med school. You had people that went to prestigious colleges. You had graduates from Michigan. You had journalism. You had journalism majors and things like that. You had people trying to be comic book writers or comedians and actors. And so I think it started just getting younger and younger. And so you had a couple of people like me who are on the older end of the spectrum. So you're still interning, so I don't know if you can really gauge, but there's a huge difference between a 21-year-old who's just declared their major and a person who's been out of college for 2 years living on their own, and so I was paying my rent. I had a car loan, I had insurance, I had dental, I had, and so it was absolutely different world. And then, so I was already kind of on the older adult world of that. And then, so when I did the Gauntlet, I think I might have been the second or third oldest person out of the 20 or so people, but, I'm 26 years old, and I'm with a group of people that are 18, 19, 20, that don't really have any experience, might have one semester of college, telling me what it takes to be a good leader, or telling me, how things are supposed to go. And it was just absolutely mind-boggling. I think it was Montana and I mean, she wasn't there very long, but some of the questions and the discussions that people were just having, and we would just look at each other like, we're just old. And I'm not going to say I'm a baby. It's just holy. You know what? Goonies. Who is the older brother in Goonies?
Oh, I'm stumped.
Brolin. It was Brolin. This is Mikey's older brother. This is gonna piss me off. All right. Goonies. Goonies characters. But no, I was the older brother in Goonies that nobody really liked, and it was Bran. It was Bran, So everyone else was having fun, and you're this older cantankerous guy who's just there, except they don't want you there either, so they just vote you off. So that was the big reason I didn't like it. Also, for the Gauntlet, I was the alternate. I don't know who was selected before me. I was never asked to be an alternate. I think they called me, 48 or 72 hours before the show. And so at that point in time, I was broke. I think I was a server at the time, trying to get in advertising in New York. And so you have all these people that usually have, you see the show, everyone's jacked and everyone's in shape. They'll have anywhere from 6 to 8 to 12 weeks. And a lot of these kids, they don't have real jobs per se. They do the college tours and such at the time. And so they can just work out and get into absolute shape. And, I'm probably about 30 pounds overweight at the time. And I'm living off of takeout and sushi and pizza. And I still have asthma, but you send me 30 pounds overweight. You gave me 72 hours notice, and then you send me to Telluride, Colorado, with the elevation that it is, and it was just brutal. Like I could barely breathe. It was a combination of the worst of everything, And so, especially for someone who is a former athlete like myself, when you're performing like on a scale of 1 to 10, you'd like to be there at a 8 or 9 or 10, and I was probably a 4 before they called me, and then I'd probably drop to a 1 or 2. So, yeah. So it sounds like just a combination of a bunch of terrible things.
Yeah, I get your sentiments on the age spectrum, because that's if you said you were 26, was it?
I was 26 or 27. No, like 2001. No, so that was my show. It was 2000. I think it was 2003, 2004.
Yeah, so, that sounds about right. Mm-hmm.
So 2004, I was 26. Jeez. Yeah, I was 26, 27. Wow. And so everyone else.
That makes perfect sense to kind of feel that way, But you mentioned about being obviously an alternate to an alternate and so on. That had to kind of imply that maybe if you weren't first on their, pecking order, was that going to be the only time you were offered to do a challenge, or were the calls still coming after that one?
So I think there was a couple of reasons. So how do I explain this? I knew once the show was airing that I probably wasn't going to be called anymore, and I think I was called once or twice just for availability, and like I said, I had such a bad experience. In hindsight, I'm just talking at the time. At the time, I had such a bad experience. And like I said, I was actually trying to get a job in production in the television world and things like that. And you're almost at the time there was a group, or you're just kind of blacklisted, and it was really tough to be taken seriously as a person, because I actually had worked in television beforehand. I had done some stuff. I was actually a radio DJ at a top 40 radio place in Kansas City. I had done some junkets for CBS, the local affiliate, and I actually worked at VH1. My internship in college or post-college was at VH1 pop-up videos, and I was a fact finder and researcher for all the facts I were on the show. That means nothing to you, but for people that were on pop-up videos or my age, that was an absolutely amazing experience. And then just to kind of get all that taken away, it was pretty frustrating, just because you had, from a perspective of me, who is probably one of the more boring people ever to be on the show, that a lot of the kids and things like that were totally taken care of, and you did the college shows and you made all your money, whereas I'm trying to get a regular job, but you were just kind of put in that list, and I had actually lost jobs and job interviews because I was on the show. People would recognize me. I mean, there were literally a time where I was hired to be a graphic. I was also, doing stuff in graphic design, whereas I had brought my, all my social security card and everything to start day one on a job, and people recognized me, and literally got fired literally got fired my first day at my job. And so it was pretty frustrating, just I couldn't get a job in television, but I was too recognizable to not get a job at a regular place and just get recognized and be hounded. So it took me probably a good 5 to 7 years to actually get back on my feet and things like that. So when they started calling me, for the availability, I would just say, I'm available the first couple of times, and then after a couple of years, I just said, just stop calling me, and they never stopped calling me, or they stopped calling me. So
I have heard that too. When you go on reality TV, it has like somewhat of a stigma to it, to where once you're out of that world, you're almost not out of it, because when you try to do anything, it always comes back to that, and it's kind of hard for people to find jobs that they're looking for in some cases. Or I know acting is, especially in television, is a huge one. Acting is like and reality TV just do not go hand in hand at all.
no, and that was another thing is, like I said, it is I was actually doing, and I make a little fun of some of the people on the Gauntlet. If you read back, I kind of make some snarky comments that I moved to LA to be an actor. No, that's everybody else. There was probably a little bit of sour grapes on my end, because I knew at that time a lot of everybody, including through my castmates, everyone, and some got success, but the overwhelming amount of them didn't have any, and so it was like, again, it was kind of frustrating, because I thought I had put in the time and the effort to do certain things, and I actually had done some commercial type stuff, but once, and I think a lot of it was just the timing of everything. Whereas you have somebody like if it was just 3 or 4 years earlier, when there was no other reality TV, you have the Tex, you have the Eric Nyes, and if you had some gumption and effort, you're able to stick with it. I mean, granted, there are some of the what's her name, San Diego, Jamie.
Oh, there's actually 2 of them, Cameron and Jamie.
Okay, well, I'll say Jamie, but because the Cameron, she's never, I've never met them, but or Dave Gentoli, who's the exception to the exception to the exception to the rule, and I wasn't going to be one of those, but no, yeah, it kind of it stunk, because, well, and then you had, I think 2001, 2003 is kind of when reality TV just became that huge mess of like craziness, when Big Brother came out, and then you had the Bad Girls Club, and then I think Real World. Well, I think Vegas honestly changed the whole dynamic of all the reality shows, after that, and we, there was a group of us that were just kind of thrown into that how do I explain it? I guess for me personally, I didn't get to reap any of the positive benefits of being on a reality show, except maybe a kid girl recognized me at a bar, but I got all the negatives that came with it. Whereas just getting harassed or not being able to get a job and things like that. So so for a long time, on my resume, I never mentioned it, and actually there were people that had known me for a decade, and I had never mentioned ever being on the show. And I actually refused to not necessarily refused to talk about it. I just didn't talk about it to anybody for 10, 15 years until there were people on my old man soccer team that knew me for 5, 6 years. And they're like, I just Googled you the other day and you're on Real World, the Road World. Yeah. So, it it was a really cool part of my life, but it's like I had a really good athletic year my junior year in high school, but I'm not going to talk about how I went to state to every single person. It's a good chapter and a good story to all the other crazy things that I did. So.
Well, you're probably a little fortunate that social media wasn't a thing back when you were on the show, or originally on the show, rather, during Road Rules and Gauntlet, because with some of the negatives, it probably would have been even more heightened had social media been a thing.
Oh yeah, I'm actually pretty thankful for that. But the weird thing is and other things that I really didn't, that it was tough for me to adjust to was message boards and things like that. And that's probably still why I don't really do much social media as well. But I do some social media, but when I'm doing marketing and things like that, I've been on social media teams and I do social media for other accounts. And, when it's part of your job, for other people and things, you don't really want to do anything in that. For me personally, I don't feel like doing that if I'm going to have to write 40 different types of ways to say, hey, we're going to be here, selling something or promoting something. But also, I'm pretty open with myself, but I'm a pretty private guy just in general. But you'd have it's just weird. It could be so volatile, and this is just me as a 27-year-old, where someone would mention me like, hey, Steve, were you at this bar the other day? I goes, yeah. And I was like, who are you with? I was like, oh, I was, with a high school friend of mine, who came to visit, you go on the message boards, like, no, Steve's new girlfriend, is, like just mean, fat and ugly. And you're just like, hey, you don't know she was my girlfriend. Like, and it was just mean, volatile, just for the sake of being, mean and volatile. And so that turned me off to social media, I remember there was this one time when I first moved to Chicago, and I was actually like Dave, Kara, myself, a friend, a couple other friends, and Ronnie Martin, and like just somebody recognized us and came up to us, and they were pretty nice, and but it was like an old security guard or something like that, and he was just scratching his armpits, and you could hear it, and he was just sweaty and stuff like that. And he reached out to, shake, someone's hand, and she's like, no, or he like blew his nose and then like offered to shake a hand, and, didn't want to really shake his hand. And then, on the message board, oh, he refused, Steve, and these people were really mean to the security guard. He was a nice old man. And, and it was like, she didn't talk about the guy who didn't wipe his nose, or who blew his nose into his hand and then offered it to us. Like, so little things like that, it just adds up, all these little micro things. And so I don't need the social media. Honestly, I know I need to do it more, but it's not a huge part of my world. So
yeah. So
I didn't answer your question.
No, I mean, you had a few good nuggets in there. Those are the best parts. People love the nuggets, Steve.
I have really small ears, like insanely small ears. So the AirPods aren't fitting me. I had another set, but they're not charged right now. So yeah. Good.
So we'll work our way up from the bottom to the top in terms of your retrospect. But before we talk about how you first got on your original Road Rules, I want to kind of ask, how did All Stars come to be with obviously an 18-year layoff, and then to kind of resurface like that? I'm sure kind of had to come out of left field for you when it was presented. How was it first pitched to you?
I had that was an insanely rough week for me. Actually, I want to say I turned it down twice. Again, it was kind of, okay, I'll try to go through a step-by-step process. So I knew that, so Katie and I still keep in touch. Sophia and I still keep in touch. And, I had a couple friends who are in the industry, and they're saying, hey, are you going to do are you thinking about doing the OG All-Stars? And I have no idea what that is. And like, again, I don't really watch much television, except for sports. And so Katie, would just send a text, and I actually had kept in touch really with Katie. I almost actually moved to Kentucky. I had actually interviewed at her production company to be a creative director, and didn't get it. But I killed the interview though. And she was telling me about how much fun she had, and when we were still keeping in touch, way back when, 10, 15 years ago, she was despising some of the All-Stars, and, or not the All-Stars. She was despising, she didn't like the last couple of experiences on the challenge. And, she came back from All-Stars, and she goes, you should reach out to Bill Murray and say you want to be one of them, be on the show again. And I was like, I really don't think so. And I'm pretty sure they don't want me really at all. And she goes, no, you don't understand. It's going to be fun. And based on everything, like I said, from my experience with the Gauntlet, is I am not in the reality world, the Buena Murray world. Anytime, there's some people that I do run into. When I was living in the heart of the city in Lakeview, there was probably like 6 of us that all lived within 4 blocks of each other. It was kind of crazy. So, I would see Shane all the time. We work at the same gym.
Shane Landrum?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He literally lived probably a 45-second walk away from me. And, it was just one of these like, hey, what's up, Shane? And actually, when I first moved to Chicago, I actually lived in the same building, like one flight down from Dave Gentoli. He's actually one of the reasons why I moved to Chicago. And then I think Jamie Murray lived 2 blocks away from me. David from New Orleans worked 2 blocks away from me. And then what's her name? Nanny? Nana?
Nani, yeah.
Nani, I apologize. I only, but she actually came to the bar. She was a semi-regular at the bar that I used to manage as well. And so when how did that come? You're probably gonna have to edit all this out because this is still kind of scatterbrained. So I knew the first one, and there was actually only one person that I connected to. I still remain friends with Buena Murray. He's no longer there. He went to another production company. But back I had this grandiose idea. So I actually still have my Suzuki Grand Vitara from the show. I had it for 14 years, and a friend needed it, and so just kind of the beater car. And then I moved and actually needed a car again, and I didn't really want anything, and so I fixed it up and kind of made it nice again. And I was gonna do this idea of the 20th anniversary that I was gonna drive around, and meet all the old castmates and stuff like that. And I just sent an email to Julie Peasy, and who's the bigwig now at Buena Murray, and that was pretty much it. I hadn't emailed or reached out in probably 15 or 16 years, but it was just one of these, hey, thanks for giving me this opportunity. It was a fun time. This was actually before the challenge, but that might have planted a seed. I have no idea. I think Katie might have mentioned something to one of the producers, and they called and offered without any idea what I look like, without any reasoning. And I said, am I going to be an alternate, or are we going to be on the show? So you're going to be on the show. I said, why? I'm still trying to. They won't tell me why. I have a couple ideas why they want to be on the show, but they reached out sometime, I think in May, and it was a pretty, holy crap, that was a really rough week. So they called, let me see, that week. So I have no idea what, if you've probably been keeping up, but the hate crimes against Asian people in have, gone up astronomically and things like that. And so, that's triggered a lot of memories and, of experiences and bullying and all this other stuff. But one of the things that was pretty rough was, my mother, who is a little Thai woman, who's, 4'11", 5 foot, 106 pounds, and who is cancer ridden. It's controlled, but she is immunocompromised. She has an incurable cancer, and I'm worried about her. She can't even go outside for a walk, just because there were, 13 hate crimes in 1 week, or, of harassment, and where she lived, where my parents lived, and she couldn't go outside. She didn't go out. She was, undergoing chemo and things like that for a while. And then, right when, everything's looking good and looking great, all these hate crimes come up, and then COVID happens. So it's just like this triple whammy. And so it got to the point where my sister also lives in Chicago, where we had a sit down where, have the parents move up to Chicago with us, and just for her overall safety, because she couldn't go out into the city or go for a walk without my father, and he would have to wear like a Go Army or 101st Airborne or retired military guy, just to kind of offset any potential harassment and things like that. So they did have one experience. So that was a pretty intense amount of time that I had to deal with. And then the next day, so I don't know if you're a golf fan or not, but one of the really cool jobs that I do every couple of years is I'm the official keeper of the Ryder Cup. It's, the little fancy cup that, goes USA versus Europe. But I'm the guy if you Google me and Ryder Cup, you see me. So, during the period of time before the Ryder Cup, I travel around with the Ryder Cup, and I do 60 events in 40 days. I probably fly 27 flights in 23 days, and I go from, city to city, to events, to sponsors, to, it's a great time. And it was going to be in Milwaukee or in Wisconsin. And so everything was going to be in Chicago, Milwaukee. And it was a huge chunk of money. I had not worked for COVID. Because of COVID, the last event I had actually worked was the TPC Championship that was actually canceled halfway the year before. So I had gotten, so that was actually the last time I got a haircut. So I worked at TPC, and pretty much all sports events and sports marketing, were canceled. Every single one of my bosses were laid off. So there's this big, huge chunk of non-working. And then with Chicago and COVID with production and like hand modeling and things like that, they drastically reduced staff. So I'm unemployed nearly for a year. And, I was able to do, a one-off bid. Actually, I did some for Barstool in a golf tournament. But so you combine that, everything with my mom, the Ryder Cup was supposed to come back, and then that event was canceled for me. The Ryder Cup still obviously happened, but that was a huge chunk of money. And then I had 2 follow-up jobs that were also, taken away that same week. So within 72 hours, I had a significant amount of money that was already there taken away. And then that Thursday or Friday, I was at the hospital for an immense amount of testing, which I won't get into, but it was pretty heartbreaking, heart-wrenching. And then, after 3 hours of testing and blood work and talking to the doctors and things like that, I get the call about an hour and a half later asking if I'd be interested in being on the challenge. And I said no. And Katie and Sophia call, and they say, you got to do it. I said, I can't do this. This is like just way too draining. I don't know if I could do this. And at that point in time, I know I don't watch the shows, but I know for a fact that, I'd be one of the first people voted for, even if I did really well, just because no one knows me. And the new kid gets picked on all the time. And again, I'm 44 years old, and I don't feel like doing any of this. I don't feel like playing a game, and haven't been able to work out and all these things. And Sophia gave me her code to watch the series. Katie said it was actually really fun. They actually respect, the game. And she goes, it's going to be a shit show later on, but the first couple of weeks, if you can last the first week or two, you can go on merit, and if you perform well, you're going to stay. And then one of the casting people said, just watch the show and see what you think. And then, had a small gaggle of people trying to get me to do the show, and that's how I got on the show.
Well, that's it's a very complex situation.
Yeah. And initially I was like, I'll be fine if I'm an alternate, because being an alternate was from what I didn't even know Sophia was. She didn't even tell me she was an alternate. So that's what I was actually kind of planning on. But she goes, "Oh, you're going to be on the show." I said, "Why in the world?" Like, again, they had no idea what I look like. I think I sent like a 20-second clip just face of everything. And then, so like the main producers had no idea what I look like. I got a text from, I don't know if I'm supposed to say their name, like Kitty Gallagher. And he goes, can you send a picture of us before you leave? Oh, okay. So literal, like, production had no idea. I think so I never got a straight answer, but I have a couple ideas. But
what ideas on why they would have put you on the show do you have?
There's any number of reasons. I think they kind of wanted maybe to have some Royal Rumble surprise, like, whose music is that? Who is this guy walking in? And I knew from the moment I walked in, about 80% of the people had absolutely no idea who I was. Darrell thought I was one of the cameramen because I was sitting up front when we first were meeting everybody, and I know I look absolutely different. Facial hair wise, like body wise, and I think they want a little bit of surprise. B, I think they maybe wanted to throw in a little bit of Pacific Rim spice, if you know what I mean. And I think those are pretty much my reasonings, and maybe a little bit of sway from Katie and her suggestions, because she really wanted me to be on this season with her.
So none of those people knew. Did a lot of them know you, or was it just Katie? And then there was none of like that. Oh, Steve, I haven't seen you in a while, or did that not take its course?
So, like we were talking about before, I got out pretty quickly of the whole Buena Murray MTV reality scene. Once I was, going back and forth with LA, with, doing, very minimal appearances, but re-recordings and just hanging out with friends. Then I moved to New York. But a couple of the, one-off appearances or a charity festival, I really didn't, see anybody. So, you know what, I'll back up a little bit. I have met a decent amount of Buena Murray or Real World Road Rules people. I think probably 120, 130, but a lot of them were just one-off events, or one or two meetings at a bar, after a recording or something like that. And so everything was, I think I hung out with Leah for half a day. I drove around New York when Paris was finished filming. And let me see, even though Brad is from Chicago, I'd never met him. Darrell, I did the Gauntlet. Tina, actually knew before she was on the show a year before that. You might have heard the story, but I helped cast Tina in Lincoln, Nebraska back in when my show was still going on, I think, back in November of,
So that makes sense then, because that was actually a fan question. They wanted to know if, you and Tina had any type of friendship beforehand, because it kind of seemed like, she went to bat for you, and then you guys partnered up on that first challenge.
So with Tina, it's we have this relationship where you have some friends where how do I explain? out of sight, out of mind. The friends that draft, you gradually drift apart after high school or college, or your political differences and stuff like that. And then you have some friends that you haven't seen in 10, 15 years, and then you see them and you just start talking like nothing has passed. And Tina, our personalities are, it's very weird. Our personalities are absolutely different, but the basis of everything is the same. She talks an insane amount. Actually, you're probably surprised that I'm talking this much as well, but I'm an extremely good listener.
I actually personally interviewed her for an hour and a half before she made it to another interview, and got to know each other and things like that. And our backgrounds are very, very similar. Both half white, half Asian, growing up in a very small rural part of the Midwest, but can pass for other races and things like that. And so, but still worried about our mother. And that's actually how we reconnected. There was a point in time where, all these Asian hate crimes were going around in the U.S. and I hadn't talked to Tina in probably 14, 15 years. And I got her number and just texted her. And I just texted every single one of my friends that I grew up with, how's your mom doing? How are you doing? How's your parents doing? And so Tina and I, that's how we were connected. And then the challenge happened, and I had no idea that she was asked to be on the first challenge, All Stars. And so there was that bond. I don't know if my bond with Tina was 100% with just her protecting me with Darrell. I'm sure that was a little bit of it. But she had to cash in some favors, I believe, as well. But it was nice having Tina, step up to bat for me. But there was a lot more friendships and relationships that I couldn't touch really on that point. So it is what it is. But yeah, from All Stars, let me see. I met Leah once. Teck was actually the first person, along with Cyrus, who I ever met outside of our seasons when I did a taping in LA. And it was actually, Teck was fantastic. And I tell him that, I've told him that a few times, but he actually approached me. And I think I was with Blair at a bar or something like that. And he just, tapped on the shoulder and just gave in with a big Teck hug. And he goes, welcome to the family. Cyrus did the same thing. A couple days later, just randomly, met at a bar. Not necessarily randomly, because I think there's certain bars and sections in Hollywood where everyone kind of like hung out with and things like that. But Teck remembered meeting me, LT, a little bit, obviously Sophia, Katie, and I think Brad kind of remembered maybe. I think Ryan Kehoe said I was the first Asian guy he ever had a crush on. Casey had no idea who I was. I think there was a couple of people who Katie told them about me and maybe triggered some memories and things like that. But as for most of it, no one, I didn't even know there was a Real World Cancun until 2 weeks before the show, when I started watching everything. I binge watched 9 seasons 2 weeks before the show. So
yeah, I feel like them putting in the season in Cancun, and then 3 cast members from that Real World Cancun season was almost like a de facto homecoming meshed with an all-star season, because I don't know, maybe in their mind Cancun wouldn't happen, so they're like, yeah, you know what, let's just put the location in Cancun, put 3 of their cast members on Cancun. I don't know, that's just my theory. So
possibly, but I also know, I don't know if I seriously don't know the number of the seasons after 12. I don't know, what seasons went to what. So I didn't know there was a second Real World Portland. I knew it was second Chicago, but I don't know where the cutoff was to be considered the age of All Stars. And I think they might have had extended. I think Cancun might have been the youngest group. But the younger the people are, they're less affixed or handcuffed to the world's responsibilities with families, jobs, and careers, and all those other things. So I think that might have had something to do with it. I'm not sure. I'm sure they're going to have to get younger and younger, but there's a big difference between, I'm in pretty decent shape for a 44-year-old, but me at 90% in shape still wouldn't touch like 50% in shape Steve at 30 years old, so competing against the 32 and 33-year-olds is pretty tough.
Well, something you didn't quite enjoy, and a lot of the fans love this moment from this past season of the All-Star show, is when you kind of critique Derrick on his choice of wardrobe for the nominations. I want you to kind of walk me through that moment and what was going on in your head when you made that comment to him, because I found it from a TV standpoint that was like peak reality TV or just TV in general. Like, that was hilarious. But what made you say that? Did you really not like the outfit, or what was the knee-jerk reaction behind that?
Well, here's the thing is, I have no idea when I said it. Like, I didn't even know where the location was. I didn't know I said it. I don't remember saying it at that point in time, ever. And I didn't think it was ever a discussion. It was just one of those, it's like, my old girlfriend, before, I used to have a girlfriend that I would purposely wear jean shorts out. We'd get ready and stuff like that, and I just wear jean shorts and jorts, and we'd be sitting down. I have a blanket on. I'm like, all right, let's go. And you're wearing that? Like, what? Nothing. It was just a slight rise, or I'd wear like the cargo shorts that all old guys wear, and so I was just like, you're wearing that? It was absolutely nothing. It wasn't until the interview, I think on my exit interview, they're like, what do you think about his outfit? And I'm like, well, and he goes, you said it before the voting. Do you think that had anything to do with the voting? And I went, wait, what? He goes, and then it was read back to me, and I went, wait, what? And that's why when you see there's that, if I'm being voted to be, by a guy in his late 30s over an outfit, over a nothing burger comment, like, I was like, at that point in time, I was losing my voice. I was tired as hell. And it was just one of these, like, this is why I didn't want to come back to reality TV, because something so small that was absolutely nothing, is the reason why I'm going to be going in to the arena. And so the thing is I don't hate the outfit at all. It was just one of these two. There's a couple of different ways you can look at it. It's the cargo shorts. Like, you're wearing that. But what sucks is, I think for a lot of these people, this is the first challenge that they've done in decades. In 8, 9, 10, 15 years. And I think at the time when I said it, again, when she reminded me, I thought I might have said it outside, during the, afterwards, of just making comment. But when I see it, and I've got my little old man massage gun on, I think it was just one of these things where people are being thrown into the arena for the first time. They're only here for a couple days, and you're bringing the attention away from them and making it about yourself, if that makes sense. And so when I ask if it's a joke, like, again, I didn't know anybody, so I didn't know if there was an inside joke or anything with that. Is this what is? Because am I remembering, like, in Big Brother or other, like, counseling, like, it's more of a stoic. It's more of a, like, are we supposed to have a party afterwards? Or are we, like, everything that I've read, it's like, it's kind of a semi-serious, it could be, or it's way more seriously portrayed than, and I'm the guy who wears Hawaiian shorts or Hawaiian outfits all the time. But also, and I think I said in my comment, I said, Teck can wear that outfit. Like, it's just one of those things that, certain outfits match certain personalities, and so that's how I kind of thought about it for his outfit. You can go into a more, like, but like I said, it was, again, if it was like, if we were in 8th grade and I said that, I think, that it would almost be like perceived as mean or bullying and stuff like that. but as a person who should be comfortable in their own skin and what they are. I mean, we all have our insecurities. I absolutely know that, but to be just like, and like I'm like, I know if I look stupid half the time. I know, like, I'm 44 years old and I look like a Jason Momoa cosplay reject who's a hand model. Like, I understand how silly and stupid that sounds, and so I have to have a sense of humor about it. Is like if I'm walking down the street, hey, you know who I look like, and 99% of the time it's Dothraki comment. I have to understand I'm going to get that comment. And so I think when you wear something like that, you have to understand, like, it's a bold statement. You're making a bold statement with those things. So,
well, it seemed to strike a nerve with him a little bit. He threw you in, but then in my eyes, what I would consider episode of the season was, I believe it was episode 4, when you and Casey won the daily challenge, and you guys made that masterful move and orchestrated his elimination. The thing that stood out to me is someone with, like you, right, who's been so removed from the equation. You would almost expect someone like you, who's been removed that far, to not really have the wherewithal or the clue as to how to make a move like that. But I think what people don't realize is, when you're removed for that long, you almost don't think. You're almost like for example, I mean, your Chiefs are playing the Bengals this weekend. The Bengals are a super young team, right? And everyone's like, how are they here? How are they supposed to be here? They're so young that they almost like don't think, right, about the moment. So that's the perfect analogy for you, right? You almost like didn't think when you made that move, and you just made it. You realized, hey, I'm the new guy. Everyone is gonna not think twice about throwing me in. Let me strike now while I can and make this big move,
It wasn't as simplified as that. So I came in after, like I said, I had said no multiple times, and after watching it, Katie and Sophia basically said, he goes, they respect the competition. Like when I left the Gauntlet, I told you about how much I didn't like the experience and all that stuff. But there were a lot of fun moments. But when I was voted in on my Gauntlet that I lost to Trishelle on the puzzle, it was a great moment in my history. I wasn't angry because I lost my section or in the airplane battle, and so I knew I was going to deserve. I was one of 4 people to deserve to go into the Gauntlet, and I don't think I deserved to go into it the other time. And that was, I barely remember that. I didn't even watch that episode, I don't think. Anyway, so fast forward is basically, I knew I had no shot, or had a very small shot at going to the final. I think for someone like me, getting into the final was harder than the final itself. And, this is a very rudimentary way of me breaking stuff down, is I think you had to have 4 qualities to be really good on one of these challenges based on my 2 weeks of binging. Okay. So this is just from my perspective. You've got to be in shape. And on a 1 to 10 scale, for a 44-year-old in the outside world, I'd probably be 8.5 or a 9. For a challenge, I'm a 6 or a 5. I came in, but it's with the world and COVID, and some people live in warm weather. Some people lifestyles. If they don't have children, or if they're not in a relationship, or they're in a state like Missouri or Texas or Florida that don't have COVID rules, you can work out at the gym all the time. And I have people in my very small circle that are or who are compromised and things like that. So I had to be extremely careful. So I would literally, from the day that I was called in the 4 or 5 weeks, I think I was able to get in at 4:30 in the morning. I could work out 3 days a week. I think I got in 11 workouts, and half of it was water. So like there was, I was already behind on that regard. I think you had to be smart. And so even though I lost Trishelle in a puzzle, I think I'm pretty smart with math and puzzles and things like that. And so I'm always going to have that. But I'm okay with athletics at this point in time. I'm smart. I have no political connection whatsoever except Sophia and Katie. And what was the fourth one? I can't even remember what the fourth one was. Political, something or other. Apparently, I don't have it. So, but I didn't want to do that because I knew from the challenge that I've seen that the new kid gets picked on, and I think it's unfair. And I had explained this on another podcast. And Katie had said, nobody, if you do really well the first couple, you're going to be fine. Then there's going to be a big shit show afterwards, and then you can scramble, afterwards. And so my plan was, you know what, I'll win on merit the first couple times, and then just prepare for the shit show, and then if there's something like gross eating contest or a pepper eating contest or a trivia thing, at the end, there might be a small chance that I could make it to the final. But lo and behold, after the first one, we come in second. I do pretty well. Tina and I could have won, but we held back, but we didn't want to win. I get voted in. And normally, and I explained this before, the voting in the new kid is a very challenge move. You've seen it, over and over and over again. But I would say most of these people aren't challenged people anymore. We are nurses, we're wives, we're husbands, we're parents, and you see more than half the people are saying they're doing this for their kids. They're doing this for their family. They want to prove that they can still be competitive. They want to prove, how to, be a role model for their kids. And so I think what was being surprised, and they have the whole Nehemiah talking to people and things like that about like trying to sway the votes. But the group that he talked to was Katie, myself, Sophia, and Kahada, and MJ. And I know MJ wasn't going to vote for me, but the other three aren't going to vote for me either, and I'm not going to vote for me. So anyway, but I think when I was put up there, that left a bad taste for a lot of people who hadn't done a challenge in 10, 15 years. Like, what's the point of me? Like, you have these moms getting into shape, and working out and taking, they're taking time off, from their kids and their family, to do this. And that gets all thrown out if you don't make someone happy or you're not nice. And so I think that struck a chord with everyone else. Was like, if this guy who came out of nowhere did really well, if he's being voted in, what's that going to say me as a parent? And I'm not a fan of nepotism. That's also why I didn't necessarily want to be on the challenge, because in my mind, I thought I was going to be thrown first, and I was convinced I wasn't, but I was. And so I think that swayed some people. I think I had some votes in regards to that. And then I also had like Katie and Sophia. And did Tina vote? No, I don't think she did. Or did she? But also the other thing they don't really say is like, I'm a pretty freaking charming guy. It's like, once you get to talk to me after, I said, I'm an Army brat. Like, I was the new kid so many times in school. Like, I'm used to this. And so I can get along with people pretty quickly, and you can tell if I'm an asshole or if I'm a jerk or not. And, and some people really like me. So I think he wasn't ready for that.
Well, there was also another, side of that move that you made as well that maybe didn't benefit in your favor, which is the Katie spectrum of things. Obviously, she didn't take kindly to you putting Ayanna up against her. What was maybe your thought process behind putting Ayanna up? Katie said to use your brain, but she didn't necessarily throw a name in particular out there. So what were you thinking in that regard?
Okay, I'll answer that bit. I just realized I didn't answer your question. I went off for 5 minutes. So basically after that first one, I knew I was going to be a target, like, because once you get thrown in, like, and so my name was thrown in, by Darrell for the second one. And I knew if I didn't win the other one, I was going to be thrown in. So it's just easy for the new guy to be thrown in all the time. So I had to stop that. And so I figured the easiest person to target to stop that was going to be Derrick. Because he threw me in. And I'm not a revenge kind of a guy. but I knew for part of my survival that I had to make this move. And I didn't think it was that big of a move. I just thought it was just like but it changed the course of the game. So, totally. And then Darrell used the same exact move, to put in the next to put me and Teck against each other. But Katie did not like the move, obviously, because I was never given a name. I think the strategy of things, and I'll say with my fault on some regard. Again, it was going to be like, respect the group, respect the game, respect the challenge. But Ayanna purposely, said Super Bowl and left. And I don't know if she had the wherewithal to know that she was going against Katie, based on what the voting would become. And so it was going to be tough. I already had a target on my back. And I think if I hadn't put Ayanna in, the target was even going to be bigger. And had Katie not, disqualified herself, I think I might have been able to pull some strings not to get her in, and Ayanna would have been in. But that's where the super political part would come in, and I think she was more upset that I was against Ayanna because she knew that it was going to be Brad and Derrick. And it might be this big head banging, wrestling, wall ball, or whatever the ones where people destroy each other type of event. And she did not want to go against Ayanna in that, I believe. I think if it was going to be somebody and Brad, let's say, MJ probably would have, let's say if it was Kahada and Brad or something like that, where it might be more of a skill or agility. I'm just throwing out Kahada just like from a physical dynamic that she wouldn't have minded going against Ayanna. Does that make sense? Because, yeah. And so I think she's 16 steps ahead of me in terms of the challenge and production, and I'm one step ahead of myself, 2 steps ahead of myself, just trying to survive. So.
Well, what name do you think could have potentially sufficed with Katie that would have made her happy?
So if you took Ayanna off the board completely, and I think
something.
Well, I said Jasmine as mine, but and I forgot what Casey said.
Oh, because Casey was in an alliance, I think, with Jasmine. They had like the Cancun Fresh Meat Alliance or something.
Yeah, but am I supposed to talk about that or not? I didn't know about that.
It's been talked about. So.
Okay, so yes, I didn't know that because I had mentioned Jasmine, and Casey said no, and I think what the reasoning was at that time, and she's a total deal maker at this point, and I also don't think if Casey didn't win that challenge, I don't think Derrick would have gone in. I think it would have had a bit of a different play, but I think Casey had a little bit of an extra grind. As well. So I think Jasmine was one, and
that probably would have been it, because you look at the rest of the girls, and it was Ayanna, Janelle's in great shape, Jody's a powerhouse, so Kendall obviously. I think did Kendall have a Oh no, Katie did not want to go against Kendall.
Kendall said the only thing she said she didn't tell me a name who she would want to go against, just in general, but she did not want to go against Melinda and Kendall. And so in my mind, helping her out is I swayed it because she did, from my perspective, she didn't mind Ayanna. And so I think Casey, what she had told me is that she wants Jasmine, because Casey's also one of the smaller gals, and I think she wanted, if I had to go against somebody, later on. So I think she was playing a chess move for herself. And then, so I think the only moves for Katie that I would have pushed against was Jasmine from if I'm gonna break it down. And then I think Janae thought she was going to possibly go in, but from my old school perspective, I would have felt like a hypocrite because I think because she came in second and me throwing a person who did pretty well to throw them in against the Wolves, like, who am I to, like, that would justify what Derrick's move was to me, was she doesn't know me, and she did really well. So, but John A did thank me at the end of that night. And she goes, "You made some good friends tonight." So, but I don't know what I could have done. So,
well, yeah, you seem to kind of fit in then as the game went on, and you kind of did seem to start making friends. You and the King's Palace Alliance, you kind of found yourself firmly in the midst of that. But and then obviously we know how it kind of soured over when you chose to go up against Teck. Do you regret that decision, or you think maybe from just how you stacked up with everybody, you think that was giving yourself the best chance to win, is what I guess that was?
No, I'm trying to figure out how to say stuff without trying to get into trouble and what my perspective is and what other people's perspective is. No, so it was. So I became friends with everybody. I mean, LT and I, we talk sports through and through, and even before, like, Tech's a huge music guy, and I mean, literally, we had an hour and a half conversation about Phil Collins, one night, and in Miami Vice. And I'm a huge, I worked at VH1 and pop-up videos, and so just talked about music. And and Nehemiah, it was one of these things, how it started, and it started after the first one, because Nehemiah was put into the arena, and I was, obviously my name was thrown in, and and I'm trying to, decipher what the dynamics between everybody else was. And based on my 30% of challenges watched, I always thought that Kahada got the grind of the deal on many things, and he would do well and just still get thrown in. Guy named Brandon seemed like he got screwed the most out of everybody. Nehemiah was also in that group, and I named them kind of floaters, where they didn't have, they were friendly with everybody as human beings and stuff like that. But once a challenge happened, they're borderline chum in the water or like throwaways, And so you had, I think, like, the Kenny, Bananas, who's the other guy? Evan, that group, and then you had this Derrick, Darrell, and Brad. I thought it was stronger than what I realized. And so, and then you had the others that were just free agents / floaters. And, if once you get thrown in, they're just going to keep being thrown in. And, started talking with Nehemiah, and yeah, he agreed that he was one of those guys. And I went and he just had a discussion. I went, why doesn't anybody else try to go against the big guys and try to pit them against each other? And it was just one of these, from maybe what you just said, this new perspective of what you can talk about, is, going after and making a big move that's never been done before. I've got nothing to lose. I probably wasn't going to do another challenge for 18 years. And so, and I talked with MJ a little bit about it, and not necessarily him specifically with those, but just, what the dynamics are, because he's a guy that gets along with everybody. But I wouldn't say, as far as my knowledge is that he doesn't hang out with anybody outside of these shows or is friendly. And so, so you just kind of do some feelers, and then you kind of realize, and LT beforehand is friendly with Teck and is friendly with Nehemiah, and LT is a beast in a lot of physical challenges, but he's not. Admittedly, he said he has a little bit of trouble with some of the politics. And so basically, I just said, if you guys want to vote me in because I do something shitty, vote me in. And so that's kind of how, in my mind, how this King's Palace started. I didn't name it the King's Palace, or obviously, and stuff like that, and we didn't have a name, but a bunch of guys in this group, and I thought eventually Kahada would probably come over if his name was put in once again, and maybe in my mind Ryan also might float over, but he was eliminated, first or second. Because I really got along with Ryan and Derrick, and once they were eliminated, and then Sophia was eliminated, I was like, crap. So then I have to start. This wasn't a strategy. It was just me thinking out loud. And, I do know that it's part of a game, but it's not like I'm this evil genius, conniving and things like that. It was just one of these, let's just do it. And I said, but if I do crappy, you're more than welcome to vote me in. I have no problem doing that. And as for like me wanting Teck, it wasn't one of those. I didn't campaign for Teck. From my perspective, it was just one of these things. It sucked that it was going to be myself, and then and had I not said anything, it wouldn't have been that big a difference. But I already knew that Libertarian was going to vote for Tyler, and I knew that Nehemiah was going to vote for Tyler. And I, Tyler is a massive person, and when I was thinking about like Miz in the oil wrestling match, there's some things that I can do better than him. There's some things that he can do better than me. But if it came down to some type of wrestling, I could take him down. But if it has to do with something like me moving in with pole wrestling, or we're greased up, the guy sweats more than like it's absolutely disgusting how much Tyler sweats. Like if you go back and rewatch everything, like we're just walking into the arena and it's buckets. It's like and so I'm just thinking like, holy crap. And I also have an ear infection at the time as well. I can't hear, like I've lost muscle, and I'm physically getting weaker as I'm there. And just me trying to move Tyler in my mind was going to be like, this is going to be absolutely like terrible. And he's won twice. And so it's just one of these things where, if you're betting, is like, would you rather go against Tyler? Would you rather go against Teck? And you see some of the challenges, there's some things, that I think I'd be pretty good at. If it's something physical, like that coffin pull with a puzzle, I can do that pretty well. Had I not gotten the ear infection, I think the sandbag things, but with the puzzle, that could be my saving grace. But I was like, but Tyler's a pretty smart guy with puzzles and things, and he's super geeky, like Russian literature, like crazy nerdy. So is Libertarian. And so it wasn't me like campaigning at all, but I knew I had 2 votes against me for Teck. And then I asked one person, and then because I just wanted to even it out at 0-0, or to just and I didn't campaign against any, and I asked a couple people around, like, who are you going to vote for? And I wasn't going to try to sway them. I just wanted to hear what their opinion was. And I went, okay. And then and I forgot, something happened the night before, and then like Darrell gave me a tap on the shoulder or something like that, and then and so I thought I forgot what the whole situation was, but we're lining up, and then I think did she tell you this or no? Someone asked her, like, who do you want? And I just went, it doesn't matter really at this point in time. And then she goes, I want a name. And I was like, Teck. But the whole thing is like, when they have me and me talking is, and I'm just talking out loud, and I'm not downplaying either one, like, Teck or Tyler. I just went, Tyler, he's won twice. He's a proven winner, and it would just suck. I said from a self-preservation mode, obviously most people would want to go against Teck than Tyler, who's a 2-time champion. And he's massive. And so then it just gets kind of construed into something bigger, and me, turning against, the King's Palace and things like that. So, I mean, I'm a traitor. I don't know. Like, I have no ill will toward anybody. So.
Well, Teck gave you a couple shots in that elimination.
No. Oh, so okay, yeah. They actually in one of the reviews when Teck left the show, I just finished watching like an hour ago or 2 days ago. They told us, and this is me, I haven't been on a challenge, and I know some people are, and we've had this discussion, some people can do what they want, and they know they're going to get asked back, or some people can do, like, they can sneeze and get in trouble. I don't know what my, we have to, sign all these things, and we have to follow the rules, or we get in big trouble and things like that. And so one of the things that they said, we're not wearing equipment, we're not wearing helmets, we're not wearing anything. We're not supposed to touch each other. Okay, so we're not supposed to touch each other, and so I'm taking heed at that. And so first, we go back and forth. And what sucks is this is totally. And before they interview me, they go like, "What don't you want to do?" And I was like, and I hadn't worked out in 2 weeks, because of the ear infection. I just said, I just don't want to run, because you have to remember, like, every time I'm taking a step, it's just like a bass drum in my ear. I don't really have really good balance. And I've just lost like my cardio in the last 2 weeks. I haven't been able to work out. And I just said, I just don't really want to run. I don't like this endurance thing. And I just don't want to do any type of running. Like, I want to do a banging thing. I want to do a puzzle. I want to do a pulling thing. And of course, it's something that's totally in Tech's wheelhouse. Plays basketball all the time, year round. I went, this is just basketball court. It's going back and forth without a hoop. And so I'm like, shit. But he beat me fair and square. But when you say he hit me, so I mean, he's playing like post up aggressive, the couple times, and he's pissed off because, and understandably, I think because he's small and or not small, but on the lighter side, that people are aiming for him. And it just kind of it sucks in that way, because people are going to be aiming for you and wanting you to go, and then it just sucks because he thought like, we are cool, but me saying I'd rather go against Tim than Tyler, hurt his feelings, pissed him off, angered him. No, so hurt his feelings turns into being pissed off, turning into rage, turning to him physically getting into me. And he channeled it, so good for him. But I mean, he lowered his shoulder a couple times to me, and I didn't know if he was just kind of kidding, or he was just like a bull, like trying to intimidate me. And then everything. Don't want to talk about editing. I know it's entertainment, but I tried avoiding him, and you can't really see it on that angle. But I tried avoiding him, and then I did a spin around, and I slipped. And it kept going, and then he clipped me, and again from the side, because I was actually trying to avoid. It wasn't a full on frontal hit. And then I just kind of went, holy crap, this is okay. If we're gonna get physical, that's fine. And so the next time that was going to happen, and I was about to absolutely blow. Like, if he lowered his shoulder and I saw him lower, I went, I outweigh him by 50 pounds, and like this could be bad, and so I was about to lower my shoulder, and then you see me at the end, like I'm running, and I'm going, like, I see him lower his shoulder. I pulled up, and then I just do like a lineman coach, you just hold, and he got me, we collided, and my mass, overtook his mass, and he flew back, and then I just kept going. But if it was my younger day, I would have ran through. I would have talked so much shit. I would have screamed. Maybe I should have done that now. I don't know. But I lost. So it's been 18 years since I had to do anything like that.
So now, what would you say the over and under is? Based off of your experience and what you know now. If a call in the future comes, what kind of if you were to get a call tomorrow, what would your answer be?
It would have to. It has to be. There's certain parameters and things like that. It's really tough with my situation to go against people, and I know now with the next season that they've changed the standards and different people are coming in, and for some of these people, it's a full-time job. And for me, it's a once in an 18-year type of job. And again, you have to, I have to be competing at a 90% physical level or near 100% for me at my age to be able to overtake the lack. Oh, experience was the fourth one. So you needed to be smart, physically fit, be political, and experienced. I was shitty on political. I was shitty on experience, and I'm pretty pretty smart, and I was okay athletic. So I have to raise my athletic, I have to be in shape. But with lifestyles, with people around me that I care for are immunocompromised, there's only so much that I can do. And living in a place like Chicago that just has, like, we got 8 inches of snow this morning, I just can't go running by myself. And so to compete against somebody, and plus with COVID and wearing masks and being able to go anywhere, like, I can't go to it's tough to do time. It's tough to manage. It's tough to compete against someone who, say, lives in Florida or lives in Tennessee that can be around all year round and train for these types of things. So I'd really have to weigh that. I'd also have to weigh what's going around, like, in my personal world and stuff like that. But these are the things that I have to think about. So if they were to call me tomorrow, I would I think I might have to, depending on how much time they gave me. Immediately I said no. But it would be, I didn't realize how much impact I had on the show till the show started, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, my whole goal was I was going to be the most boring, I was going to be my Road Rules character, the boring guy who doesn't fight, but holy crap, I was in the first episode as a target. I was in the second episode as a target. I won the third one, pissed people off, and then I was a target. Then I sucked on my last one. So, like, I think my name was pretty much constantly mentioned, like, the entire time, and so I have no idea.
Listen, I think I could speak for a lot of people that having you back there was a breath of fresh air and a nice change of pace from the usual people we're used to seeing 27 times in a row.
Yeah.
It's different to see someone who hasn't played for quite some time, or we've seen for quite some time, play the game, and almost like, because the environment was essentially foreign to you in a sense,
Yeah, it was. I was prepared for the worst and hoped for the best, and I got pissed when it was the worst about me being a target from the first day. And like I said, it's like 90% of this was to have vacation and have a decent time, get some money, and see Sophia and Katie, and I hadn't hung out with them, and I've seen them differently at different points, but not together, and this was Cancun, like, beach, and so that was kind of my mentality. And if I win and do some cool stuff, that's bonus. But it just went, crap, this sucks. This is exactly how I expected. So kicking the balls the first day. So
yeah, for sure. Well, all right. It was a pleasure getting to speak with you, and I'm gonna have to churn the wheels on this footage and get this thing out. But
I apologize about the editing. If I was your production professor, I would give you an A just because you had to deal with all this shit. So thank you, appreciate it.
All right, have a good one.
All right, take care of yourself. Thanks.
You too.